everybody. It's Crystal here from Crystal Clear ESL. I am so excited to be bringing you the social media in China expert, Kinga, who is going to tell us all about, I don't even know how to pronounce it properly, XiaoHongShu. So let me welcome Kinga. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. Did I even pronounce it right, Kinga?
Thank you, Crystal. So from my pronunciation could be wrong as well, but from what I understand, it's pronounced XiaoHongShu.
Xiao. Interesting. Yes. Okay. I'll have to file that one away so I do it better. Cool. No. So why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to recently?
Okie dokie. So a little bit about me. I am a teacher who came from the Chinese online ESL industry, and obviously I was very shaken when things shut down last August. And for me personally, I didn't come from a VIP kid background. In fact, my company was relatively not well known, I would say. And they kind of strung us along for a bit that things would be okay until they weren't. They stopped paying us. So I was thinking about, I was just thinking about going independent, but I didn't have any students who wanted to go with me because that company is still running. So I heard about XiaoHongShu and I was able to recruit some students there. Right now, I have 20 students enrolled in my classes since January is when I really launched there. And even a few students who are in Europe who found me there as well. So that was pretty interesting too. So I'm always exploring that app and trying to get the word out to other teachers because maybe it's something people don't know about.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people don't know about, including myself. I do have the app, but not really sure how to use it. So if you're just joining us today or you're watching the replay, Kinga is here to share her expertise on how to use a great Chinese social media app that can be accessed by pretty much anyone to recruit students in China and clearly worldwide. Right? So can you tell us more about what it is? What is XiaoHongShu?
Of course. So XiaoHongShu, how I like to describe it, is like the Instagram of China. For me, it feels really familiar because I'm pretty active on Instagram and it's got quite the same like interface and the same features, I would say. And I've talked to my students about it and they've told me that it's a really great, the target audience is like young people, but also young parents. So that's perfect. Right. That's a perfect place. So it's really just a social media platform where you can share photos, videos, and content creators and businesses can also share their content as well.
Right. Oh, how interesting. And how does one go about like downloading this? Is it a mobile app or can it also work on the PC?
That's a great question. Actually, it can be accessed on the PC, but only through a URL website. So for example, if I shared my profile link with you, you would be able to pull it up on your browser, but you can't download it as an app on your computer, and so you lose a lot of the features. So generally, it's just a mobile app. It should be accessible to everyone. However, very interesting that, it's China, and a lot of teachers have shared with me who maybe use Google devices. They have trouble downloading it. It's not available on the App Store.
Google is banned in China, isn't it?
Yeah.
So therefore, anything associated with Google could be more difficult. There's always a workaround, yes. I think, yes. But yeah, certainly. Oh,
that's something to keep in mind. And and so there, like you said, there's always a workaround, but sometimes it's complicated. But you just have to know how to get around certain things, and everybody should be able to access it at the end of the day.
So you can download it in the App Store or the Play Store. And do you need WeChat to set up a profile, or is it based on an email address?
Actually, you need a verified WeChat account because you
Mhm.
cannot post until you've connected your WeChat account to your XiaoHongShu or Little Red Book app. So there are
Interesting.
two ways of setting it up. You can either set it up via your phone number and you'll get an SMS code, a text message for confirming the profile, or you can confirm it via WeChat, but either way, you have to input your mobile phone number. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I think you're going to need both of those to get up
So
and
you
running.
just need WeChat. If you don't have WeChat already, you need to work on getting it, I think, because otherwise the Chinese market is so much more difficult to infiltrate, isn't it?
Yeah, and another thing, Crystal, for me is that I use Xiaohongshu to create a kind of funnel. So I always funnel people into my WeChat. And I never really disclose a lot of information about myself as a teacher or my classes. It's really vague. But once I have them on my WeChat, I know I'm safe. And that's where I disclose any information. And also, I know that they're more serious about pursuing me as a teacher, right? So
Because they've taken that extra step.
exactly,
But
exactly.
wait, what you said you know that you're safe. So what is that in reference to? Is it
Oh,
not safe to correspond on the Xiaohongshu app itself?
I wouldn't say it's not safe, but for example, in the beginning, I did have a lot of my posts flagged. And after further discussion with other experts or people who had more insight, it turns out that someone has to report your post or flag a post. So it could be either other teachers on the market. I haven't seen a lot of that recently. It could be just, regular people who didn't appreciate that kind of content because it is, you know,
Right.
going against the grain, I would say. But maybe also I don't want people to know, for example, my prices and like spread that information on the app. So I always try to take it to another platform basically.
So when you've had information or posts flagged in the past, do you know specifically what you had done that was wrong?
Mm, one thing that I would avoid, although I have seen some teachers doing it more often now, but in my beginnings, you don't want to share QR codes. You don't want to disclose prices, maybe. You don't want to be so blatant about advertising your teaching service. You more want to treat Little Red Book as your portfolio. So I upload sample classes. So it's more of a portfolio of my work. And if somebody is interested in knowing, what I got going on, then they'll contact me directly. So QR codes, WeChat IDs, anything maybe related to price, I would personally avoid it.
Right.
That's what I could say.
So it's indirect sales. It's more um yeah, like you said, like a profile in terms of enhancing your brand,
Mhm.
getting awareness out there of you so that people make that next connection to learn more
Yeah,
rather than flouting and touting everything
exactly.
that you have to offer, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. I love that. I love that it's, not everything on the table because I
Mhm.
think what happens very quickly, it turns into a marketplace and then it's a
Yes,
race to the bottom dollar if
exactly.
everybody's aware of what is going on with the competition. So let me just
Mhm.
say to everybody who is watching now or later with the replay, we would love to have your questions. So please follow the link on this stream to register your name with StreamYard, and then we'll know who we're speaking to. Drop your questions in the comments box. There's about a 10-second delay. So if we don't get to them straight away or we're like mid-sentence, then I will try to follow up after. And that includes if you're watching the replay, I will get a notification from YouTube that you've left a comment. And I think we'll leave this channel of communication open so that Kinga can feedback as well.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Wow. Some really good information so far. So we know sort of like what to avoid in terms of don't put your WeChat QR code or ID. Don't be too flagrant with the salesy aspects of your
Yeah.
service. What do you recommend posting, Kinga?
Um, I recommend and there's a sentence in my head that I recently heard: video is king in terms of marketing. Sure, Canva templates and graphics are really great, but especially for Chinese parents who want to see the goods, video
Yeah.
is king. So I definitely recommend either preparing a Canva presentation where you can jazz up your images with some animations, some music. That also boosts the post, because if you use more of the interactive features of XiaoHongShu, which is adding like a filter or audio to the post, it boosts the algorithm a bit as well. So something more animated, and sample classes. That's probably the number one thing. Self-introduction video, sample classes, and then with a few graphics here and there scattered throughout your feed, which makes it bright and colorful and is eye-catching. I think that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, to show your personality and your
Mhm.
teaching style. I love that. Just
Yeah.
make sure, of course, to, like, block if there's a student in your sample class and it's not like a
Yes.
Dora the Explorer style, block out your students so that you got all your child protection issues sorted.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
actually, because some of my parents are from Xiaohongshu, and I have a star student, his name is Hugo, and he's really active on his own profile. And he's like,
Really?
I mean, he reads, sings, dances, like he's just like this amazing personality. And I got his mom permission to post him on my feed, because
Brilliant.
I actually snagged him as a student when I commented one of his posts. And I had
Oh.
commented how wonderful his pronunciation was, and his mom was like, "Okay, so can we set up a class?" So because we were both active there, I was able to show him on my feed because it was already something he had posted. So either always get permission, or definitely cover the child's face.
Right.
Um, you can use some fun editing software to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be difficult either. I think a lot of
Yeah.
mobile apps will allow that, and it's really user friendly. That's the jackpot though, isn't it, Kinga? Congratulations with Hugo. I mean, it's
Thank you.
I think having a live student who's willing to appear in your videos is like a testimonial, and it lends
Yes,
authenticity to what you're selling without being over the top salesy, you know?
exactly.
I think that's ideal. So that would be huge, a huge takeaway for our community, I think, is to really find that star student and build that relationship if you can.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned about a funnel.
Mhm.
And I know that a lot of us are teachers and we're not thinking like marketeers, but it's really relevant and it's
Yeah.
really important to put your business person hat on. So how do you, if you're not allowed to share your QR code, how does it actually work with Shohanshu to get people to take that leap to contact you to be able to have a communication with them?
That's a great question, because it gets a little tricky, because I've noticed that actually I have to think about this, and I know somebody who's a little bit more informed on the technical aspect of Xiaohongshu, but I found that I can't message parents directly if we don't follow each other. I can follow them, they must follow me back, and then the lines of communication are more open. It's probably like
Oh,
the message request aspect on Facebook, right? So that gets a little tricky. So it's best if they follow you, and they will either comment a post, and maybe in the comments sometimes I will say either please message me for more info, or please message me on WeChat. So maybe then they would go to my DMs to ask me for the WeChat code. And there's one little hack. If you put, instead of WeChat ID colon and WeChat ID, a lot of teachers write V colon and then their WeChat ID. And it's like the secret. Um,
okay.
we all know that it means WeChat ID, but it's not like blatantly written WeChat ID. So that's one thing that you can do.
Oh, and it sort of circumvents the algorithm or the check bot
Yes.
that they've got.
Yes.
Could you put something like V and your WeChat ID in the post text and get away with it, or is that a little too cheeky?
I think you could try it out. I don't think you would risk much. I've seen teachers do it. I don't know if I have done it because I have a few posts up now. I think I might have experimented with that, and I haven't seen any flagging of posts recently. So definitely some teachers put that on their graphic, for example. So you could have a try.
Ah, that's great advice. What would be the consequence though? I mean, you've had a couple posts flagged, so is there like a suspension that happens? Do we risk getting chucked off the interface?
I haven't heard of that happening. Generally, if your flag gets posted, they send you a warning message. It's this little potato icon. That's the XiaoHongShu mascot. It's called sweet potato or something. And they'll just like give you a generic warning that, be careful what you are posting because it seems to break community guidelines. But nothing really happens because some of the posts that have been flagged, I've reposted. And because I came to the conclusion that someone was flagging them, I just went back in my follower list and thought, when did this start happening? And I blocked all those people that joined me at that point in time, and it never happened again.
So it was
Um,
one like little sinister.
through the cracks.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, well, that's good to know, though. It's the repercussions of trying different things aren't that severe.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. So, can you recommend any cool apps or ways to go about creating eye-catching posts or material to share?
Absolutely. I think the best one to use is Canva, to be honest, because number one, a lot of teachers are using Canva because they've got great, I would either use the video templates or even the presentation templates where you can input your images and they have a nice background and animation and audio sometimes. Um, so Canva seems to be the king. It's really intuitive. It's easy for me to use. My colleague Chris uses iMovie to edit his videos, but that's like a whole nother ball game. He's really good at that. I'm not. So you could use those. But if you want to start off simple, I would just go with Canva in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, I love Canva. My
Yeah,
catchphrase is Canva is life, and I do think they need to pay me an affiliate bonus.
I think so. That's something you should explore with them.
Yeah, I should look into that because it just, when you use it daily, it makes life so much easier and
Mhm.
it helps represent you as the brand that you
Exactly.
want, the polished professional brand that you want. And that
Exactly.
maybe you don't, like me, you don't have the design aesthetic yourself
Mhm.
to create from scratch. So definitely. I love that. Okay. Um, you've been on XiaoHongShu for a few months now. You've seen some successes. What kind of posts have gotten you the most interaction and comments?
Let me have a look at my feed. I think the number one post that grabs the most attention. So one thing, Crystal, I'll just show you guys my feed here. So when you look at this feed, you can see that some teachers or some users have this set top thing. And if you either get enough followers or likes or comments, I haven't worked that out yet. If you cross a certain threshold, you're able to pin a post. So definitely
Okay.
my pinned post, which is my self introduction video, has the most views, 1,471. That's okay, but I've been on there since Christmas, and then the second one, yeah, really just a few. It's kind of random, to be honest with you, but I've got some videos of teaching my kids. I've got videos of Hugo on there, and my trip to China, things like that. Just that also make me a little bit more relatable, and not just like me pushing my classes as well. That softens
Brilliant.
your image, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it makes you more approachable in a way because
Exactly.
people aren't as afraid that they'll get the hard sell when you make
Yes,
yourself come across as personable and true to life, you know?
exactly.
That's so
Yeah.
good. How often do you post?
I definitely took a break in the beginning because I had no students and just never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined. I went from having 0 students and thinking, "Okay, like, how am I even gonna support myself at this point?" But I was like, "Whatever, somehow it's all gonna come together." Somebody shared this app with me, and because I literally had nothing else to do, I posted every single day, probably for, like, 1 month. And that was a really hot period because I think it was like winter break or before winter break. So a lot of parents were active. And then
Right.
a lot of us teachers noticed that it died down and now it's picking back up again. It's a perfect
Hmm.
time to be active now because it's right before summer holiday, right before exams. Parents want to have everything organized. So if you can, I would post every day,
Yeah.
at least 2 to 3 times a week, probably. But
Right.
do as I say, not as I do, because I definitely need to work on that by now.
Yeah. It's hard to keep up.
Mhm.
Um, I know just from English speaking social media, it does help to have a plan going in. Like
Yes.
I do a monthly plan and plan out what sort of posts I'll be posting. And this way too, you can actually reuse posts because different
Yeah.
people are seeing your feed or your content in their feed rather
Mhm.
based on the time of day and whatever algorithms are at play. So
Yeah,
when you have a schedule, I think it becomes more efficient. And
exactly.
yeah,
That's
I
yeah,
don't
that's so
think
great that you
there's
mentioned that.
yeah, but I don't think there is a scheduling app that we're aware of to show Hongchu, is there? There's no way to
Um,
pre-schedule.
not that I know of, but I mean, just even just like you said, planning your content ahead or batch
Mhm.
creating your content so you could like post those videos really easily. And if you're using Canva, then you can really interchange certain elements, right? Of, I don't know, videos with your students that you can exchange one for
Right.
another. So that's a good idea.
Make it look different.
Yeah,
Yeah. I love
yeah,
that.
exactly.
'Cause if it looks different, it seems fresh and that somebody
Mhm.
else is seeing it, or there's this rule that a prospective client has to see your material 7 times before they
Okay.
take any action. So even if it's the same thing but, like, changed up slightly, I think
Mhm.
that's beneficial. What were you
Absolutely.
gonna say, Kinga?
I just wanted to say because another teacher had mentioned to me, and I never really thought about this, surprisingly, is to post content during peak times. And those are a little bit different from the peak times that we have classes. Those, he said, even 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Beijing time, or maybe 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So even later in the night when people are scrolling through their phones.
Mhm.
So that could also help boost, and even posting 2 times a day during those peak times if you can.
That makes huge sense, actually, because
Mhm.
if you think about your own habits, what do you
Yeah,
do as soon as you wake up in the morning? You check your phone, you
exactly.
check your social
Unfortunately.
media. What do you do when you put your kids to bed at night?
Yeah.
Well, you catch up on your social media. So you can see that the Chinese clients and parents operate in a very similar way.
Yes,
So it's
exactly.
not enough just to drop a post into the abyss. It takes a little bit of thought and planning.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just a reminder for those of you tuning in, we want to hear your comments and questions too. There's a little button at the top of this broadcast where you can register with StreamYard so that we see your name. And then you just post a comment and it gets fed directly to us. So we would love to receive those. You can do it after in the replay too. And then I'll get a notification from Facebook that we've had a question, and I think both of us will touch base and reply later on as well.
Great.
Okay, Kinga, I'm sure you have had the problem of time wasters. So,
Yeah.
how do you manage your time and avoid it getting sucked in the wrong direction?
Mhm. Absolutely. That's a great question, and, a lot of us teachers have, experienced what we call trial hoppers, and it was definitely a process for me to learn and understand those parents because, I went from an environment, and as we probably most of us have, where somebody was handling that for you, right? And now you got to handle it yourself and you got to recognize certain traits and stuff like that. In the beginning, I was definitely using free trials. I had a 0 student base, so, I wasn't really losing much. Um, but I was gaining like material for sample classes, for example. Yeah. So
Right.
so I was recording those things and I knew I could use those resources further on. Um yeah, but generally after I got like 10 students who signed up with me, also at a lower rate, then I started introducing a paid trial. And the paid trial really filters through which parents are committed and which aren't.
Right.
Absolutely. So, also the parents who will ask you right off the bat, how much per class? How much per class? Probably they're looking for a bargain. But the parents who ask you questions or introduce their child and be like, I have this girl, she's 7 years old, and I'm interested in developing her spoken English skills. What would you recommend, or how can we get in touch with you? They're probably more committed um, to interacting with you and just pursuing like a professional relationship with you. So,
Right.
yeah.
I love that. I love because there's such a, it's the whole trials thing is a real point of contention in our industry as to whether they should or should not be offered. But I love that you have taken a flexible approach on it yourself, and where your need was higher, it was something you were willing to wade through the time wasters to
Mhm,
get those,
mhm.
couple diamonds in the rough. And then you upped your game or your standards once
Yeah.
you were more established. I think that's a great road. Can I just ask, do you tend to charge full price for your child classes, or is there a reduced price?
I definitely charge a reduced price. And something I do that kind of works for me, I think I charge 10 USD, which is yeah, a, a little bit more than 50% for my class. And I tell the parents that it's a 20-minute trial class. Some teachers do 15 minutes, some do 10 minutes. For me, 20 minutes is enough to establish the level and just kind of start mm, a relationship, help that student feel comfortable, right? The clock's
Yes.
not ticking. But I always extend it. So by the time it's the end, the parent is like a little bit impressed that, well, the trial class was 20 minutes, but it went into 30, and 10 minutes isn't really going to kill me at the end of the day. So, the mentality of the Chinese parent is they always want to feel like they're getting a bargain, they're getting a deal. It's part of their culture. I understand that now. So there are ways that I operate where I feel like I'm having my needs met, but their needs are being met too at the end of the day. So it's really interesting to explore that. Like you said, us teachers are not always familiar with the marketing and the psychology of like sales and stuff like that. But that's a little gimmick or hack that you could
Very
use.
good. I did not know that. So that was ding, 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 ding. Very good advice. So, what would you say then, like your quick summary or catch line, what would you say is the key to student conversion?
Establishing a good relationship with the parent, actually, because I have to be honest, and sometimes I get frustrated. Like I had a mom recently. I had spent like days communicating with her on WeChat, but it paid off in the end. She had a very high ambitions for her son, which is quite normal. We're used to that by now in the Chinese environment. But I really, I took the time to answer all of her questions. It was spread out over a few days, but I need them to trust me because I can understand their position. They're sending money to a random stranger on the internet. I wouldn't feel comfortable
Right.
doing that either, right? So,
No.
so establishing a relationship with the parent is super important, as well as the child, definitely. But that happens in class. So behind the scenes, And I have a good relationship with each of my parents. That's so important to me because when something happens, they're very understanding, and I know we can rely on each other. Like my daughter had pneumonia a couple weeks ago, and everybody
Oh,
was like,
no.
"No problem. Take care of your daughter. Don't even worry about it. That's totally okay." Or I had told my colleague that I'm on a 13-day holiday right now, and somebody asked me like, "What? What did you tell them, and how did they react?" I was like, "It was no problem." I gave them notice a month in advance that I would be off on these dates. They respect that, and it's totally okay. And if they need me, I still have contact with them to some extent. But it's just
Right.
so I just feel grateful to have these parents who just like really appreciate me as a human being right now. I just feel validated as a human, which doesn't always happen when you work for some companies, right?
Yes, this
So,
is true. Yeah, you want the respect to be there
yes,
because I mean, I think more than half the benefit of freelancing is that respect because
yes. Mhm.
I know you've been a contracted teacher, and I certainly have. And
Yes,
that was one of the fundamental reasons that I turned away from contract teaching was we were very much a number and
yeah,
very replaceable and expendable. And I love now having those relationships with clients and even friendships
yes,
where, like you say, if something happens, they're on board, they're in your court and so forth. So
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
that's super important. I think I just had one other question about posting and maybe not about posting so much as conversing with clients on XiaoHongShu. Does it auto translate like it does for WeChat?
It doesn't, unfortunately. So you have to use some kind of either image text translator, or you can copy and paste into Google Translate. A good translating app is Papa Go. So you can
Okay.
just snap a screenshot and then just translate the image. So just use an image text translator. Even if you have questions about the interface, some of the interface is in Chinese, or like the messages that the potato sends me, I have to translate them.
Yeah.
So snap a screenshot and input it into an image text translator.
Okay. That's great advice. Do you translate hashtags or do you put them in English?
I use a combination of both, to be
Hmm.
honest. Yeah. Both are okay, and some teachers take the extra step, and I think that's really wonderful. I would like to explore that in the future, where they add Chinese subtitles to their videos. I think that's a nice extra step because, like, you also want to appeal to their culture. Like, um, I think that I don't know. I feel like Chinese people really like when we kind of compliment them on their culture,
Show
and
an
they like.
interest.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So I think that's a nice extra step to take as well.
And I guess if you can handle video splicing and editing with iMovie or similar, it's probably not too much of a stretch to add that. She's gone. Oh. Anyhow, that was my last question for Kinga, so she might pop back here. But I'm just so grateful that she could join us today. You should definitely follow her Facebook group. It's called XiaoHongShu for Teachers. I will pop the link for it in the feed below, as well as my Facebook groups. I've got a couple you'll find in the notes below this video. I have one for Crystal Clear ESL teachers. These are teachers interested in or already teaching dynamic digital curricula that's fully interactive and immersive and includes all the 4 skills and everything. So drop by. You can ask all your questions to seasoned teachers. There are free trials. There are free resources. And then I have a second group for the business side of things. It's called EAL Freelance Masterclass. And this just helps teachers, trained teachers, put that business hat on and, learn the ins and outs of finding students and keeping your records and everything that you need to know. Kinga is back. So let's welcome her back so that she can tell us more about what is on offer in XiaoHongShu for teachers.
Thank you.
Hey!
You know, did you know that Mercury went into retrograde? So I think that's that's what happened.
Wow, that is the best explanation I think I've ever come across. Kinga, I was just telling everybody who's watching about your fantastic Facebook group. Do you want to give us a bit more detail about what is involved in XiaoHongShu for teachers?
Yes, super. So basically, it's just a community. That's how I would best describe it. It's a joint effort. I co-admin the group with my colleague Chris Basurto. I hope I can pronounce his name correctly because he's Spanish. So it's a community for teachers who are interested in learning about XiaoHongShu, and we come together and number one, we motivate each other. We answer any questions that anyone may have. We got a lot of wonderful experts in the group. Like, for example, we have August Ju, who is really, really informed on the technical side of XiaoHongShu. Like when teachers had trouble that they'd be locked out of their accounts or they couldn't get an SMS code verified, he'd be on there helping them. So it's a great place to get your questions answered. And we're actually going to host a live with August where he'll be able to answer some technical troubleshooting issues. And we're probably going to run a 7-day challenge in the group very shortly after this live to help teachers just get started and help mobilize each other.
I love that. I'm already in the group, so I think I should push myself to join that. I think it's a great resource. And I think that because technology and these platforms are ever changing, it's a great way to keep up with the developments and stay ahead of the curve and learn what future best practice for the site are. So thank you for hosting that.
And one thing I wanted to mention, Crystal, about my colleague Chris, the reason we came together is because I'm more on the sales side and dealing with parents, and he's more on like the aesthetic and design. He has an amazing profile on XiaoHongShu. It just looks really pristine, and he's got a lot of knowledge about using Canva, and he posts tips on like how to size images, what kind of editing software you can use. So we really have the best of both worlds in there, and to really, really kind of optimize that experience for teachers.
Brilliant. A wealth of resources, I'm sure. Yeah. So, as I said before, Kinga will post a link below, and also in any of the efforts for this live. Be sure to join her group. Don't forget to follow my subscribe even my Facebook channel, because losing my words, my YouTube channel, because I do a live like this at least once a month on a variety of topics that are industry specific to ESL freelance teaching. So drop your comments in the feed and your questions, and we're really excited to hear how your own teaching progresses with the enhancement of XiaoHongShu. Thank you for joining me today, Kinga. This has been so enlightening, and it's so nice to meet you too.
I totally agree. I love it. That, I talked about this with other teachers. One positive aspect of the Chinese ESL industry kind of shutting down is the community that we've built as teachers. Because I feel like the previous experience was so isolating. And now I really just feel like it's an international community. And I really genuinely feel supported and grateful and just inspired to collaborate and just communicate with all of these teacherpreneurs on a daily basis. So that is so amazing. So thank you, Crystal, as well for, putting the curriculum out there. I have it on my XiaoHongShu feed. So yeah.
Yay, that's great. Oh, and reach out to me if you have questions about copyright or anything with regard to using my curriculum for marketing purposes. You are allowed, but there's some stipulations, and Kinga's already reached out to ask. So feel free. Okay, great. Everybody enjoy your day, and we will see you back here for the next one. Next month, we're talking about virtual classroom platforms. Big changes in the last year in that topic. Thanks again, everyone. Bye.